Hello, getting everything set up. Happy Monday morning. So let me know if the mic volume is okay. Alright, so I've got Affinity Designer open. We're going to do some vector art today. I have Affinity Designer open, and I'm going to switch over to the pixel persona. I had this idea for a little cat cartoon character. So I figured to go ahead and do it on stream and kind of show you the full process here. But I'm selecting the brush tool here, and I'm going to come over to the Natural Pencil 4B, which is the one I typically use. So we got our black color here. I'll go ahead and create a new pixel layer that we can draw on. We can kind of go ahead and get started. But my idea was this like sleeping cat. Have him nice and cozy. So I'm using this football shape here for his head shape, which he's laying on the side of his head, so kind of just his little closed eyes. Some nice little ears. This one I want to be a little more flat, like because his head's laying on the ground here, so I want to kind of be pushed up off the ground. He's got his little body here. Show a little indication of where his little legs will be. But I wanted to have his tail kind of come out, around, and towards us. Actually, maybe try to get this up here a little bit more. So I want the tail to cover this whole bottom part of him. Well, let's get the eraser tool out. I'm going to clean this part up here. So as I'm going around here and I'm creating these shapes for the cat character, we have our main football shape here for the head, and then his body, you can almost look at it as like some sort of oval or teardrop. But as opposed to making it just one smooth curve, I wanted to kind of like pick it up over here, lift it, and kind of push that shape a little bit. So you can see how we could kind of take that teardrop shape and kind of push and pull sections of it to make it a little more unique. So I really wanted this little flatter section to his back, and then I wanted it to dip here before his tail as opposed to one smooth line by creating this little dip in his back right before his tail. It creates a little more visual interest for us. It's not one smooth line. So I always like to try to push the shapes a little bit, and that's what I mean by pushing the shape. You're taking a shape that you're, that simple teardrop shape, but then we're pulling it in here, pushing it out here a bit more, just to make it a little bit more unique of a shape. So I'm going to go ahead and add his insides of his little ears. And then we could think, do we want any sort of stripes or patterns on the little guy? And then they usually have them kind of coming off their legs. And what we want to do is really want to make sure that, like this shape here, so that's how we could take a shape and we are adding form to it by wrapping around that shape. So we'd want any of the stripes to follow that flow, that curve, and that will show our viewers that it's a round shape receding away from us. And maybe he's on a little carpet or rug. Can hold shift to get some straight lines here. Maybe try something like that. Let's see here. What would be best is to put that on a different layer. That way we could try a few different things. But let's just see what happens real quick. We'll do a new layer. I can mess around with the background a bit. Drag this below. But maybe, what if we even have the window over here? Kind of like it on the right side for some reason, but then that leaves the left feeling pretty open. So we could always either and maybe a picture frame hanging up there or something. So a couple of other things on the background there. If we decide to go ahead and add that background, we may just stick with the cute sleeping kitty himself. But that's how you could go ahead and add some more, create more of a scene out of it. I want to add, make sure we're back up on the right layer here. Let's just add a little more. Let's have a little stripies on the tops of his ears too. And let's just zoom in a bit. We're going to give him his cute little cat nose, nice little smile. I want this shape here. So, and then just like again, just to emphasize kind of what I mean with pushing the shapes, this was a round shape here for his leg, but instead I just decided to pull it out and sharpen it up just a little bit, just like that, getting rid of just that little bit of curve. So that just makes it a little bit a more unique shape. It's a little bit more interesting. And then when we're going to do the vector, and the other thing is too, since we're vectoring this, I want my sketch to be very close to what I actually want out of the vector, but I leave myself a little bit of room to play around with and make adjustments. So say like this gap here, I don't want this to be here. when we do the vector. But once I go ahead and create the head in vector, I'll be able to close that gap, or I can close the gap with the tail. So as I'm doing the sketch here, even for the little carpet he's sitting on, everything that I'm working on as I'm doing the sketch, I'm thinking ahead to how I'm going to vector it and how I want to layer those vector shapes in order for the image to work. So sometimes that also will determine how I draw something in the sketch. So we've got him. I'm pretty happy with the little sketch. I've got another sketch off to the side that I had just done real quick on like a napkin. So I kind of already had this in my head, and this is kind of what what I wanted to go ahead and do for stream. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Let me know. I like to do these streams to kind of complement the videos that I do. So that way, if you're watching the videos or any of my past live streams, you can hop into a new current live stream and ask any questions you want. I'll be able to answer them on the spot. But we'll go ahead and hop over to our designer persona, and we can start our vector process for this little guy. Now, there are a couple of different ways you could kind of go about creating some of these shapes. You could use the shape builder tool here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the fill. We can up the stroke a little bit so we can see what we're doing. So you could use the shape builder tool. Kind of get this ellipse kind of where we want it, kind of get the size right. And then we could always go up here to convert to curves. And then that will automatically switch us over to our node tool. And we can manipulate these shapes. 1 minute here. Alright, so then with the node tool we could pinch these shapes a bit. We could create another oval for his body. We'll use the move tool to move this one around. Again, if we convert to curves, I can then take the node tool and manipulate the nodes. To get the shape that we want. Let's see here, this was we'll make this 5. Make that a 5 as well. So you could do that. You could use just the shape tools. You can manipulate the shapes and then layer them. You can use the pen tool if you wanted to go ahead more so manually create the shape. So there's usually more than one way of doing anything in any type of digital art program. So some of it really comes down to just you trying the different methods and finding out which one you like the best, which kind of works for your process. It's just a personal preference. So for any reason whatsoever, you may prefer one over the other, and that's totally fine. So I do recommend kind of playing around with different options and trying different things to see what feels best for you and what's more comfortable for you working. So we got these two shapes that we manipulated here. I'm going to, real quick, I've got to go take care of something back here. So all right, I will be right back. Hang tight. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. Speaking of cats, I had one of mine make a little bit of a mess, so I apologize for that. So let's see here. Let's just move that down and out of the way. So yeah, there's always multiple ways of doing any one thing in Vector. Well, in any digital art program, really, to be honest with you. So kind of after you like a lot of the art programs, it's kind of interesting. They're obviously different from each other, especially in kind of what they actually do. Like this is a vector program versus Clip Studio Paint, which is a raster-based program, although they have some vector features in there. But outside of that, as far as the basic operation and a lot of the functions are very, very similar. So once you kind of know one, you can kind of extrapolate that to other types of software. So, especially when it comes to stuff like the layer modes and such. So once you understand what multiply does over here, that translates to other programs. Multiply will do the same in those other programs as well. And then too, the other thing is once you kind of develop your process, you can kind of take that process and move it into the other programs. Let's try 3-point font there. So, all right, let's see. And this ear shape, I want to sit behind the head shape. And for the whole ear, I'm going to select the whole ear shape. I'll hold Alt, and that easily duplicates the shape. I'm going to bring this one down here. I'm going to use an ellipse for his little mouth shape. Maybe just a bit bigger. And we'll convert to curves. Oops. Just pull these handles in a little bit, kind of sharpen up that bit a little bit. Drag this down a hair. Yeah, something like that might work. Now the nose. I'm trying to consider the best way of kind of going about this. So we'll start in the center. We'll come out. We can hold Shift, drag around, kind of come up, and then we're going to curve. And then what we'll do here is we're going to create half, and then just flip that half to create the other half. That way we make sure we've got a nice even. Oops. What I want to do is I want to end that, and then we'll go straight up to that. I will come over here. We'll make that a fill shape. I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to hold Alt and Shift. I will flip horizontal and hold Shift. They kind of both line up a bit. I will now hold both of these shapes. I will come up here and click on Add. I will now switch that back to Stroke. And turn this around. We'll bring it down here. It's a little bit of a big nose right now, so let's go ahead and just scale it down. You can hold Shift to scale it proportionally, or you can not hold Shift and just scale it to get the right size that you want. Something else that we want to go ahead and do, so once we get the little nose in here where we want it, I want to go ahead and hit Scale with Object, and then I want to back up real quick with my Move tool. I'm going to select all the strokes that I have so far and click Scale with Object. For instance, let's take this ear. I'll do two versions of this ear. This ear, I'm going to take off Scale with Object. No Scale with Object. Okay. And in this ear, we still have to go in here and select this and scale that with Object. I wish if you scaled it, if you were to change the outside shape, I don't know why the inside shape doesn't change scale to object, but so this ear here is fully scaled with object. So as you scale it up or down, hold Shift or not, as you scale it up and down, the width of the line will scale proportionately as you scale it up or down. So you can see the width, the stroke width is getting larger, so it's compensating for that size change. If you don't have scale with object and you go to make that change, it does not adjust the stroke width. It keeps it 5 no matter how big it gets. So it ends up looking thinner the bigger it gets because it's holding that same width. And then if you scale down, For me, it's a situation more so when you're scaling it down, because I tend to work at a larger size and then scale the image down to keep resolution, especially if I'm using any raster elements. So as you scale this one down, the inside stroke is getting much thicker and looks starts kind of throwing that the ear off a little bit, because we wanted that thinner shape on the inside. But now if we take this one and we scale it down, see how it kept the width? So it kept the difference in the width as opposed to these two getting closer. So anyways, that's just a quick little example of stroke scale width object, which is why I always tend to turn it on. So we're in the mouth shape here. I'm going to grab the pen tool. Pull that node back a bit. I can escape to end that. I'm going to alt to copy this. With the A tool, I'll adjust these nodes just a hair. Both of these shapes, let's see here, is this the, yeah, I want both of these shapes to be in here, and I want the nose shape in there as well. Now the nose shape I want to sit over the mouthpieces. We're going to fill this in real quick. We'll get a nice kind of gray in there. The other thing we have to do is figure out what kind of color cat we want. Little ear bits, we can kind of give this darker pink tone too. I do real quick on his little face. I want to let's do his little eyeballs, little eyes quick. He doesn't really have eyeballs, right? He's got his little eyes closed, so we'll go ahead and do his little sleepy eyes. Now we can, what we could do is we could go to stroke, we could go to our pressure panel, we could set a point in the middle, and we could drag down the outside, these little outside nodes, and it'll taper each end of the eye. So we could go ahead and do that on these two. So we're just placing it's under stroke, the pressure panel. Simply click on the line to add an anchor point. And then you could grab, if you grab on one of these, it'll manipulate both sides. If you only want to manipulate one, you've got to click on it. Oops, that created a new line. You have to click on it twice. Click once and then click twice again to move it. Okay, but we'll move both. For his little mouth lines, we could do the same. We can add a point in the middle, but then we're only going to grab one side. Oh, that's the wrong side. And then just taper the outside portion. Alright, so we got his little face coming along. I'm going to come over to his body shape. I want to add these. And his little arm shape in there, just to give an indication of his arms. I'm going to drag this outside of the snout down to the body shape. And I will go ahead and take the, well, no, but I want to reverse the pressure on that. So I want it to be thinner up there. Escape to end that. I'll hold control to be able to pull that node back a bit. Alright, and escape to end that line. And now I could go ahead and start on the tail. When you're using the pen tool and you're working on curves, you usually want to, you have your starting point here, and then we usually want to come out to about the apex of this curve. So the point where it's curved the most. And then we'll come right past it here. And we can hold that, and we'll just work our way around, holding Control to pull back that node. So now we've completed that tail shape. I want that tail shape to sit on top of the body shape because it's overlapping it here. And once we got the shape in there, we can always get our node tool back out and make any changes we might want to any of the nodes. Like this one, I want to kind of smooth it out a little bit. So there you go. One of my favorite things about Vector is how you can always change it after the fact. It's not like the raster programs where you draw a line, and if that line's not right, you have no way of manipulating the line without erasing it or redoing it, unless you use like a smudge tool or liquify option like that. But this gives you like full flexibility on changing any lines or shapes that you've already created. So that's something that I really do enjoy about Vector. For a lot of the work that I do, I just at this point I enjoy the vectoring process, because for a lot of the work that I do, I don't even need the scalability of Vector. A lot of the work that I do, I created at size, so at the size that I need it to be done, whether it's phone wallpapers or desktop wallpapers, which I've been working on a bunch of those to kind of upload into a store. Or if I'm doing a logo design for somebody who needs stickers or business cards or something along those lines, I'm usually designing it at size. Well, at least I'll design it at a larger scale, but then I always output it at the size that it needs to be. And it's not very many times that I've had to create artwork and then worry about having to blow it up really, really, really large. I have done some character design work for vehicle wraps, where that scalability did come in handy, but for the most part, it's not even the scalability that I like so much about Vector. It's the process that I've really been enjoying, and the look of the art as well. So we're in here. I'm trying to figure out the best way we can go about creating some of these little stripy shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the vector brush tool, and I'm just going to give this a shot and see if this will give us at all the look that I'm kind of going for. I mean, I think something like that works well enough. I don't have any pressure set on it. So when you're using the vector brush like this, you cannot use the pressure tool to adjust what we've already done here. What you'd have to do if you wanted to have like a thinner section of it, so you wanted that, you'd have to come up here where we have our tool options. So we've got our vector brush, and then up here it'll give us all the various options for that vector brush. And under controller, if you come down to pressure, the lighter you press, the thinner the line, the harder you press, the thicker. Okay, so you'd be able to then do thin lines and then make them thicker, like that. So, you know, you can see how it makes that adjustment. I actually think that might actually work. So let's get rid of those. We'll get rid of these. Sometimes it's just about experimenting a little. And let's actually try to see what happens when we go press hard and then lighter. Now let's go light to hard. So just press lightly. And for these, I'm really just focused on trying to get that curve, having it wrap around the cat's body. This one, let's redo this one right here. Vector brush. But even when working in just with just cartoon like this, let's go ahead and turn off the pixel real quick. Okay, those will work, I think. So we'll go ahead and stick with that. But just like we were doing the animal sketching the other day, you know, I always like to do that. I'm not using any particular reference for this now, since I have, again, one of the things is, like, I always recommend using reference. I talk about that a lot in my other videos. And again, I tend to use reference. Let's just kind of adjust this. Maybe you guys can hear me better. Can you hear me better now? I like to use reference, especially for stuff I haven't drawn a lot. I don't, you know, copy it directly. It's just really there for inspiration and make sure I'm getting, like, the details and certain features correct. But, like, I've drawn so many cats and big cats and whatnot that there are just, like, for something like this, I don't need the reference quite as much. But that's also what doing the sketching, like we were doing the other day, of just sketching the animals, and taking that time to do that sort of practice with whatever it may be, whether it's flowers, plants, animals, people, whatever the case may be. Doing that practice helps inform this, and you know, kind of, you won't always necessarily need certain types of reference. Alright, I want to drag those shapes into the body shape. Kind of try to keep things organized here. Just like these little eye shapes, we'll drag into the head shape. The only reason I'm not going to put the snout in the head shape is because the snout breaks outside the head shape. If I was to put it in the head shape, boom, we lose his little chin. So we don't want to do that. So we'll keep his little chin. We'll actually put it on top of the head shape because that's where that shape is sitting. So we've got his snout shape that sits on top of his head shape that sits on top of both ears. And then the tail and everything sits on top of and layers the body. So with the tail, we can grab our brush, effective brush tool, and come in here to the tail. And again, I really want to follow that line, the curve, to show us that form. And I'm going to take the pressure off now for the tail. Okay, let's try it with the pressure. All right, we'll go with pressure. So on the side, you start kind of down. You want to go forward and then back down a bit to get that curve. And then this is all stuff that, again, you could practice when you do that sketching, like when you do the animal sketching like we were the other day. You could practice techniques like this. You could do warm-ups for this kind of stuff before you start your drawings for the day. And I want to make sure I'm going to grab all of these shapes and drag them into the tail. But if we just go back to pixel persona real quick, I'll create a pixel layer here, drag it up here. And we got the brush. A good way to warm up before drawing, because when we do a lot of drawing and whatnot, it's like anything else. It takes us a little while to get back into the rhythm. So like if you exercise or work out, it's always good to really do some really good stretches and loosen up the muscles, get the blood flowing, prep them, get them ready for work. And that's essentially what we're doing here as well. We're mentally preparing ourselves. We're building up that eye-hand coordination. So something that I like to do is I like to create a bunch of circles. You could do ovals, different sizes, different directions. None of them have to be perfect. This is, again, just kind of building up eye-hand coordination. And then you could start creating different shapes. So maybe you create a beanbag shape, teardrop shape, and then maybe we got a football shape. And then what we could do is we could start thinking about form on these shapes. So we could start adding our contour lines. So, we want to think, oh, well, what if we kind of cut that shape in half? What it would look like? So that line would wrap around the outside. You'd have one on that side. So you can start doing this, seeing how these lines follow the shape. Do it with a circle. So this would be the front. So this is a really great exercise to get used to that idea of form. So I tend to, before I'm going to be doing a lot of drawing or before I get into the sketching like we did with the animals and stuff the other day, I will tend to do this type of practice beforehand. It's definitely very helpful in kind of getting you warmed up and ready to go. So we'll hop over to the ears, and honestly what we should do, right, is we still have quite a bit of detail to go. So in this one ear here, we'll hop back over to designer. We've got our brush tool here. We're still on pressure. So I'm going to add the ear details. And then what I'm going to do, pull these into the ear shape. Now I'm going to add some color to our kitty cat. I'm going to add a gradient. I don't want that to be a blue. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to make it darker. I'm going to slide it over a bit. Let's try, actually, let's just try real quick. That one's not too bad. Alright, I'm just playing around here a little bit. I want a lighter, creamier color. I want this one to be a little bit lighter. Alright, let's make that just a hair darker. Okay, something like that. I think what I'm going to go ahead and do, since I've got 2 ears, I'd rather do the work on 1 ear, and then I could go ahead and duplicate this ear for the other ear. Okay, cool. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you letting me know. I had the mic was facing off in the other direction for some reason. I don't know how that happened, but it happened, so I adjusted it. And I also played around the mic volume on my like streaming software as well. So we've got this open here. Again, I'm going to consider the fact that the light source will be coming from the upper right, and I want to do that mainly for not for any reason. It's just a personal preference. So we're going to use the upper right idea, and I'm going to switch over to the pencil tool. So if I got the light coming in this direction, our shadows are going to be on this side. I do need auto close here. Let's get that node tool out. Close those up. I don't need a stroke. And then for shadows, I'm going to go with a very nice light purple. We'll come up to multiply. And we'll pull that into the ear shape. Play around with this just a bit. And maybe make it a little softer. Yeah. Alright, I want this ear shape here. Pencil tool. First, let's add a gradient to it. Okay. So typically what I like to do is I like to pick a base color, and then I like to add a gradient, and then I come in and add my shadows and such to it. Like the shadow and lighting. So now in here we can make that a tad darker. And then if we wanted to go a little bit further, this side of the ear would be catching some shadow as well. And then essentially we'd have our light shape. Right here. And we'll go ahead and do soft light. I'm going to turn this to make it more of a yellow. We can mess around with possibly adding a Gaussian blur. Now, at this point, it's kind of okay, Jim. Once I'll get to that question in just a quick second. I want to just mention real quick, when you're working with these shapes, the shadow shape and the light shape, you can add the Gaussian blur if you want to kind of blur it out and make it a smoother transition, but you don't have to as well. Again, it's a personal preference. It's something that I've been doing and I kind of like. in my artwork, but you don't always need to do that. You can have it be just the light shape and then the shadow shape, and have it being more of a cell shaded animated look. So this one we're going to play around with a bit. We're going to leave it like this for now before we blur it out. But yeah, I just want to let you know, just because I do something doesn't mean you have to as well. If you like sharper lines for your highlights or shadows, keep them. Or if you want the hard line for the highlights and then the softer shadows, and you're using the Gaussian blur in the shadows. So again, it's totally up to you, and I recommend you kind of playing around both and seeing what you like. But there's definitely a place and a reason to use both. Jim, when would you use the pen tool versus the pencil? That's a good question. Again, a lot that'll come down to some preference. Let's see here. Where I need the stroke line. So that's the vector brush. I know where my... Yeah, so there's a fill option. So I can get rid of the stroke, fill, multiply. So you'd be able to use the vector brush tool for the shadow creation as well. So for creating these shadow shapes and the light shapes, you could use either vector or pencil tool. But as far as the difference here in the toolbar goes, the vector brush, we have the stabilizer feature, and we have our blend modes and controller. For the pencil tool, we've got some other options. We've got sculpt mode, we have our controller again, and then we also have stabilizer. Sculpt allows you to physically change the shape that you already have. So that's the main difference between the pencil tool and the pen tool itself. The vector brush tool versus the pencil tool. So with the vector tool selected, I can only go ahead and now create new new vector shapes or lines. And then I come over here and I could fill that shape. But if I wanted to manipulate that shape any further, we could use the pencil tool with sculpt selected, and we could cut, completely change it, add a new one with that sculpt feature. Now, as far as applications outside of like the illustration work that I'm doing, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. Those have more specific functions, is what I'm trying to say. When you're doing this type of art here, you could use either one for that. But I appreciate that question. That's something I want to look a little bit more into. But we can come down here, get rid of that ear. I'm going to grab this ear, Alt, and bring it down here. Come to his head shape here. I'm going to grab the vector brush tool. So let's see if we stroke. You could use the pencil tool for that as well. Alright, I want to make sure that bring these into the head shape. gotta go back here. Let's get this. I'm gonna save this gradient to my swatches. Head shape, swatches. There we go. This I'm using more for the coloration. So I want the lighter color at the top of the head, the darker towards the bottom and the chin. And the chin, I'll do the same. I'll do the same for this shape. Oh, white. There we go. Let's adjust the head shape too just a bit. And the tail. Oh. Could go ahead and do is I could grab the ears, the head, and, oh, nope, I got the tail selected as well. Deselect the tail, move just his head. There, I can make his tail a little bigger as well. And then we can actually just double check the stroke. I want the tail stroke to be 5 like the rest of the body, and I can actually bring this tail up over the head so it kind of comes out in front of his little cheek a bit. Make that just a little bit bigger so it's a little bit more noticeable. We'll come into the head shape. I'm going to turn that one off. Actually, what I'll do is I'm not going to get rid of it, but I am going to move it. I'm going to move it up here. And we'll move this one up here. Move this ear hair. Oop, nope. Oop, not the whole shape. Nope, I'm in the ear shape now. Alright, here we go. The ear. Actually, we've got a hair. Just a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. I want to be off his cheek here, you know. Something I want to try quick. Let's try, see what happens if we add some noise. I really like the noise. It can really, 40%. We'll do 40 on everything. A little bit of texture, kind of adds a little fur almost, I feel like. Alright, so a little extra detail there. I'm going to go back to the pencil tool. I'm going to start creating some shadow shapes. Turn off the stroke on that. Oh wow, okay. I'm in the... That just manipulated the whole head shape there. I need to be outside of the head shape. Alright, so... Oh, I want the sculpt off. That's what happened. I have to turn sculpt off. Okay. Get rid of that stroke. We'll just add some shadows. Let's see, add just a little eyebrow. And then let's add some highlights. Maybe adjust this shape a bit. Nope. I liked it when it was closer to his eye. Control Z. Let's hop into his little mouth. I want to add a little bit of a gradient to his nose here. And then I'm going to add a little like highlight. I'm not really going to add any shadow. Just like a little bit there. And then I want to add a couple little like wet spots. So all of this I'll drag into the nose shape. And now we'll add shadows. Let's see if this shape is what I'm looking for. I want to maybe just, yeah, that works. All right. Now let's try that and see what that looks like. So again, it's always a little bit of an experiment just to try different things and see what might work. And by doing stuff like this is kind of how you develop your quote-unquote style, by always trying different things. You know, people always get really caught up with the style thing. You know, well, how do you develop a style? How do you get a style? I don't have a style. It's really just about doing it. The more you draw anything, the more practice you do, the more final images you do, it all adds up to you starting to kind of create your style, because your style really is just your method or your approach to how you create a piece of art. So sometimes people get a little too focused on that, and it can bog them down. We don't need that shape, and we don't need that shape. That one works okay. Maybe come back in here. Maybe I can add a little bit of a highlight right to the top part of his eyelids. Yep, that'll work. And let's see if we just kind of creating a few little fill shapes here to just see what would kind of look like if we kind of had some like fur, not overlay, with some highlights. Alright, so we'll go with something like that. It's very subtle, but that's fine for this. Alright, we got the body shape, so actually, let's get rid of that. We're going to go here. Alright, do a shadow shape here. Another one here, perhaps. And then our light shape. Would be there. So we can grab all of these, we'll drag them into the main body shape. I'd also end up with some light here. Some light there. And then we could go ahead and do so I'll probably end up adding these shapes to this larger light shape we have on his back. So I just wanted it to be like some fur that's catching that light. So I select these shapes here, soft light, and then alright, I need to drag all of these into the shape. This one, and these I can add together. I could do the same for these here. Let's just see. Yeah, so that overlap will work, so we'll just go ahead and that shape, we'll add these together. And then this one. So, let's see. Can even add maybe a few in here. Just to kind of add a little more like texture and such. And I can even just grab this one and duplicate it. I can move it and shrink it up a bit. Something like that gives it just a little bit more interest. Oops. Hey Russ, how you doing? You're not late, you're just on time. I decided to try to do a morning stream. I've been doing like evening streams. I've been doing mainly Friday afternoon. And then other than that, I've been doing some like evening streams. So I wanted to... Actually, that's not going to be in shadow. But we can add the highlight there if we want. I just want to try some different time slots and see what might work best for a longer term plan. So yeah, I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and actually let's get rid of both of those shapes and make just one shape. So yeah, I just wanted to try the morning slot and see. I like, I'd rather be doing the morning and afternoon streams. The evening streams um, are okay. It's usually just because of my work schedule. Um, but because while I mainly do this for a living, I still help a friend of mine out with their own business, just to supplement things from time to time. So. Alright, and we could add another shadow shape. Oh, cool. Yeah, so today's a Saturday for you. Okay. Very nice. Well, I really appreciate you being here. Spending some of your time. But yeah, I really appreciate your support, Russ. Just everything you've done over the years and always hopping on the live streams and everything. I really, really do appreciate it. You're by far one of the best people I know. Oh, you bet. So I'm working on just adding a secondary shadow here. I'm going to even try... I don't know exactly what that was. Alright, let's throw that in there. I also want to try another one here. Oh boy, we got ourselves a little rainstorm. It's always nice though. I'll drag this into the head shape. And I will use the transparency tool on it as well. And then actually if I grab the node tool, I don't really know. I look how, okay, maybe just pull this up a bit, is what I was thinking. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, just adding a little extra shadow. I feel like these little spots just need a little, extra. Kind of looking at this shape. See if we had something. transparency to it a bit. Maybe this one too. Yeah, just a little bit. I'll add a little bit more gradation there. Let's see. Okay, like that, I think. Okay, so then with that being the case, I'm going to go back over to his tail. These, should be in his head shape here. So back to the tail. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a larger shadow shape. I want to move this below the other shadow shape. And then this one will add a little transparency too. Alright. And then what I'm going to do is with the node tool, I want to kind of get these to line up with each other a little bit more. Something kind of like that. For the rug section, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create a circle. Put a stroke on it. I want to reset the stroke. I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to hold Control and Shift for that. I need to be on the Move tool. Now I'll hold Control and Shift. Alright, and then let's see. Kind of try to mess around, maybe like creating some sort of little pattern. I don't want to get too complicated or crazy. Alright, let's see here. Alright, so just something with a little bit of a pattern on it, you know, nothing too technical or crazy. We'll drag this into our bottom ellipse. The top one, I'll lower the stroke just a hair. I want to come in here, I want to take these little triangle bits that we did and lower those as well. I'm going to drag the shape into the other ellipse shape, and now let's pick some carpet colors. So we've got kind of a So probably want to do some blues. I can select all these shapes and we'll add this one purple color to it. The middle one, make it brighter. The outside one, we'll make it a little bit brighter as well. So just make it the same color, and then we'll adjust it from there. So we've got our circle. Now I can manipulate it into the ellipse that we want, and I'll bring that pattern and such with it. I don't know why. Okay. So we'll move this whole thing below. I'm going to adjust the strokes on the inside as well. And now what we'll need is essentially another ellipse. But this one, we want to get rid of the stroke on that, and we're going to go with our shadow color. And I'm going to get my pen tool. We're going to come out here, and we're going to add this little shadow shape here. I'm going to add both of those together. I'm going to get another ellipse. And this one I'm going to blur out just a little bit. Alright, sorry about that. It's funny, my daughter learned in art class how to shade spheres and objects, and she had a little light source and everything going on. So I was like, oh, hey, that looks pretty familiar. So we could create a rectangle for the background. So say this would be the table he'd be on, if he's on a table. We can also create a rectangle, say for the background. We'll put that below the other rectangle. We'll throw a gradient on it. I don't want this to be, I don't want this to just be a darker version of the same blue. I like to push it a little bit towards the purple side. For this brown here, we'll do something similar. We'll just make it a little more red. We can do a radial gradient and see what that looks like. Something like that could work. Because then we can always come in here and add a stronger light source by adding a sphere with our light color, soft light. And then this one we can hit with a Gaussian blur to kind of blur it out and make it more of a transition. You know, and then we could do, I mean, if you wanted to, you could use an ellipse as well. And then this we could use our, I lost our shadow shape here, so let's go ahead and go, change that back to normal quick. Let's get the color picker tool out. Okay. And then we can use the node tool, convert to curves if we want, and we can manipulate the shape a bit. And then actually too, let's just see what happens if we drag the shape all the way up on top of everything else. Let's just see here. I'm just trying to see if just playing around. No, so let's just go back. We'll just want this to be below. All right, back it up a little bit more. There we go. All right, well, it's worth just trying to give a shot. So what I could do is I can group the cat. Just kind of mess around a little bit. I feel like I want a little more shadow on him, but I'm not sure this is the best way of doing it. I'll leave it for now, though. Add a stroke to this. Let's get outside the cat. Let's run this to be darker. change it to radial. So my idea would be that there's like the moon out here. And then I could duplicate it, and then one below it I can add a Gaussian blur to, and we'll kind of give it a little bit of that glowy spread out effect. This one here, I want to up the stroke on a bit. So if the cat's 5, we'll do 4 for the stroke here. I'm going to grab my pen tool, hold shift, I'm going to create this line here. Drag that into the window shape. Need a, nope, this. I'm just going to select a very dark purple, almost black. And we'll make this one that as well. Alt, Shift, okay, down here to the bottom. And then I'm going to create another rectangle that'll come up in front. Actually, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and grab this. Use that same kind of gradient. So just kind of getting some window details in here. Something else we could do to kind of make it look like a window. Just real quick, let's duplicate this shape. I'm going to drag it below. I'm going to get rid of the stroke. Fill, we'll do our shadow shape. That way we've got a drop shadow now under the ledge. And then honestly, we'll duplicate the ledge, the rectangle again. We'll drag this rectangle into, make it a bit smaller there, and we're just going to set this to multiply. And for this one here, we'll do the same. We'll duplicate it, drag it back into itself, make it a little bit shorter, and then we'll add multiply to that. So that just gives us some extra layering. This one here, we're going to that one we're just going to leave that darker color. Okay, so we got a drop shadow there. I'm going to create a circle here. That would be a lighter gray. We'll add a black stroke. And then we can go ahead and create I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. Duplicate it again. just want to get some in here. I'm not going to try to make this too specific. We can duplicate the shape and then drag it in itself, and then we can hold Control and Shift, lower the stroke. I'm going to move all these in a little bit. And then we can go ahead and create a stroke there, and then if we come down to, well, we're in our stroke panel now, we can have the start point or the end point. We'll go to end. And then we can add ourselves a little triangle. And we'll make this 3-point. This ellipse, go ahead. And then I can go ahead and create another circle, but below I can change this to none, color, get rid of the stroke. Set this to multiply, and we'll drag this below. Here. Can actually make it a little bit darker. Just really kind of sit on that wall. I can grab another rectangle and throw that back here. Put that on multiply. I can hit it with the transparency. Maybe drag that rectangle up a bit. Something else we could go ahead and do. You can either use ellipses. This has got to go in the window shape. It's going to go below, like any of the bars. But you can use ellipses. You could use just the pen tool. Which might actually work out better. So we get rid of the ellipse. Now I'm going to create this kind of little lines for the windows. So it's like some kind of tilt a window. I can select all of these. Put them all like soft light. Even up the stroke just a bit. And then kind of while I'm looking at it, I think we could try, where did this? This might be able to come up over the carpet shape. Yeah, because I kind of want it to sit on the carpet. It's below the cap. Oh, something like that. And then let's see here. Convert to curves and then just see what happens. No. I'm going to lower the opacity on that ever so slightly. And then we'll throw some light behind the window. We'll use our transparency tool. So we're kind of getting towards the end of the little illustration here. I'm going to just real quick duplicate this background rectangle and let's see here. Just want to try a different color on it quick. Maybe something more like that. Just change some of these colors around just a hair. And then even the clock, I think. Oops, wrong one. Let's back that up. Clock. Yeah, okay, I like that just a little bit better, I think. Alright, so let's go ahead and what we'll do is we'll go ahead and sign our name and then we'll see if there's anything else we want to kind of add. So select the text tool. I do have I mention it every stream, but there are a few videos that I'm going to be working on, and then once I upload those videos to YouTube, I'll be holding live streams to go over what I've covered in those videos. I'm also working on a project that I've been using Clip Studio Paint for, so I'm going to be streaming process for a project that I'm working on in Clip Studio Paint, so it'll be a different process than the vector process that we do here, so I think it'll be something interesting that I'd like to share with you all. And then if you have any questions about that in particular, we'll be able to address that there and then. But yeah, I just plan on sharing a bunch of different stuff that I've been doing, and then you guys can kind of let me know what you like to see the most. Let's see, we can move to. I'm gonna try to see if I can grab. I don't want my name. Oops. Let's grab all of this. Alright, with all these selected, I'm gonna hold shift and scale them all up a bit. Let's see if we get the cat over here. And this is where the scale with object comes in handy. Now I don't have to worry. I know that all my strokes scaled as I did that. I don't have to worry about going in there and tweaking or fixing anything too crazy. Because you could also do the same with this stuff if you wanted to make it a tad smaller. But yeah, it's just a fun little, cute little illustration. That, I'm going to duplicate this, make it a little bit brighter. But yeah, this is kind of just a basic rundown and idea. The only other thing I can do is take a look at this window again. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create another rectangle over that one. Maybe make it a very light teal. We're going to put it on soft light. Drag that in here. I want it to be below the bars and such. And then we'll do transparency on it, just to give it a little bit more of like a glass feel. But this is kind of just like the my basic approach, so you can kind of see how we developed the sketch, and then we took the sketch and how we layered the various aspects of the drawing. So we start with the sketch, we get our basic shapes and vector. Once I get all the basic shapes and details within those shapes, I'll add a base color, which I then turn to a gradient. We apply our shadows, our highlights, and then we could work on and focus on any of the other details that we want for the image. So you'll see that's just my process. So even when we get to Clip Studio Paint, you'll see I approach things very much the same way. I handle the sketch, the line art, base colors, and then expand on it from there. But my plan is definitely to be back Wednesday evening sometime, and then we'll do Friday afternoon again. But yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I really, really, really appreciate it. I love the interaction. My whole goal with like the streaming, the videos, is really just to create a art community where we can learn together, and I could share different things that I've learned over the years as an artist and pass those things on to you. So I'm really looking to build a community. So a few ways to kind of keep up with it is, follow, subscribe if you haven't already. That way you don't miss any new videos that I post or whenever I go live. I really want to use these live streams as the opportunity for you guys to be able to ask me questions directly and have them answered, especially after you might watch a video if you're unclear on something, or if you're working on your own project and you stumble across something new. Um, that's really the goal of these live streams, is so that you can ask me and get that answer immediately. If you do have any other questions and I'm not streaming or whatnot, please feel free to email me. I always help out anybody who's got questions on projects they're working on. I do my best to help. So a number of ways that you can help support the community and stay in touch, more importantly, is I do have and will have the Discord link in the comments after the live. It'll take me, after the live, it usually takes me a little bit to get the thumbnail up and do all the kind of background work that I have to, but the Discord link will be in the comments, along with a link to Patreon, where you can either be a free member or you can pay for one of the tiers. The tiers I'll offer color palettes, working files, high resolution images, worksheets, templates, and any other assets that I might create for Affinity Designer, I will be uploading and having on Patreon. So Patreon's also a good spot to keep an eye out for supplemental material for these videos. So again, you have the free member option or paid member option, depending on what access you'd like to get. And then also, to directly support the channel, the super thanks on the YouTube videos themselves, or the buy me a coffee links on my Twitch or YouTube, and that helps me continue to create videos and come and stream multiple times a week. More so than anything, you just being here, chatting and hanging out is really the most important thing to me. And I'm just really glad that I can come on here and share this with you, and that you're kind of getting something out of it. So main goal of the channel is just to teach, for people to learn, and us to all learn together. As I've been streaming, I mean, I've had people come in here and recommend different things, like the pencil tool, for instance. You know, hey, why don't you try using the pencil tool for the shadows? And now that's something that I've incorporated into my process. So it's really about bouncing these ideas off of each other and sharing what we know, because there's always something to learn, and there's always something that I can learn from you all as well. But yeah, I really appreciate you spending your time with me today. I hope you have a great rest of the day and an amazing week. I will see you all again on Wednesday. Thank you all so much. Until next